very informal. So if you have questions as we go along, please drop them in the chat and I will keep my eyes on there. My colleague Amy Hutchins is here as well. She is our manuscripts cataloging librarian and she can also answer your questions. So let's get started. So this is MS Codex 141. This is a 15th century prayer book and processional written in Germany in like around 1450, so like mid 15th century. We'll take a quick look at the binding. The binding, this is not an original binding or even a contemporary binding. This is an 18th century German binding, but it's neat. It's a nice little binding. The book itself, as you can see, is very small. It's quite small. It's got a clasp. It used to have two and one of them came off. But now you can see when you open a clasp, what you do is you slightly push the book together and then lift it up. And now we can open it up. You will notice that the edges of the pages have been sort of colored red. I'm not, if this was gold, I'd say this is gilded. Is there a term for this, Amy, for this sort of coloring? If so, I'm not familiar with it, might be. But sometimes you see this, and this would not have been done in the Middle Ages. This would have been done when the book was rebound. So it's a prayer book and a processional. Linda says, oh, it's tiny. It really is like my whole hand, and I don't have big hands, guys. Covers it right up. All right. And it also has this pretty paper, decorative paper inside. So we open it up, and the first thing that we see is this really wonderful historiated initial here. And this initial was written about in this book. This book I'm about to show you is very big, so we're not going to get a good look. Leaves of Gold. So this is there was an exhibit in the 90s, or maybe in the early 2000s in Philadelphia. Leaves of Gold. It featured manuscripts from all over Philadelphia and focusing on illuminated manuscripts. And it was kind of the precursor to a project that I was involved with between 2016 and 2019 called Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis, or Bibliophily. This is where we digitized manuscripts across Philadelphia. And the Leaves of Gold exhibit was sort of the precursor to that, because that brought all of these institutions together. So when we asked them to come back so we could digitize their manuscripts, it was a little bit easier to do that. And there's an essay about this manuscript, specifically about this miniature in there. It was written by, who's it written by? I'm not sure. Oh, wait. I'm not sure who wrote it. I want to say might have been Roger Wick. But anyway, I just wanted to say a little bit, focus on this for a minute because it's beautiful. Okay, Amy says Deborah Taylor Cashin. Okay, thank you. That makes sense. So who is this and what is happening here? So this miniature, I'm just going to read directly from this article. In this miniature from a prayer book used by nuns, and we'll talk a little bit more about nuns in a moment, Mary Magdalene is shown clothed only in her luxurious hair, her bare arms reaching out in prayer. She rises out of a mountainous grotto towards heaven, where she is greeted by a diminutive angel. So there's a little angel up there, whose wing curls out from the space framed by the initial. The image is based on the French tradition of her legend, recorded by Jacobus de Voragnier and supported by occult and relics. The legend held that Mary Magdalene was forced to sail with other followers of Christ on a rudderless ship, which brought her to Marseille, from where she preached the gospel throughout Provence. Later, she retreated to a cave in the mountains and lived as a penitent hermit for 30 years. Her clothes rotted off her body, but her long hair served to clothe her. Although Mary Magdalene had nothing to eat or drink in the wilderness, quote, every day the angels bore her aloft at the seven canonical hours, and with her bodily ears she heard the glorious chants of the heavenly hosts. Then, being filled with this delightful repast, she came down to her grotto and needed no bodily food. So this is what is happening here. So she is here, and her hair, her very beautiful, impressive hair is here. And then the grotto, all of this, you can see there's little trees and there's sort of rocks and mountains here. And so that is what is being depicted in this little thing. All right, so it was the prayer book. I'm going to keep sort of looking at this article because I learned a lot from reading this. So the prayer book, as I said, Germany, mid-15th century, it belonged to nuns who were probably members of the penitent order of St. Mary Magdalene at Cologne. So aside from this initial, the rest of the manuscript, as we'll see, and we will get into it, is not nearly as decorated. This is the big piece of decoration. There's a whole lot of other stuff happening here, but this is the really the decoration that's happening here. It is, let's see, it's really, though, notable because it is gender specific, right? This is a manuscript that was at least used for nuns, if it wasn't probably made to be used by nuns, by women, by a penitent order. So this was an order, the order of St. Mary Magdalene was founded, I think, in the mid-14th century, so maybe 100 years before this manuscript was made. And it was a penitent order of women who were sinners, were admittedly sinners. And it says later in this article that they were often like former prostitutes who were then penitent and came into the order. And so notably, it begins with this initial of Mary Magdalene, who in the story of the Gospels, she sort of serves this purpose as sort of a fallen woman who wants to redeem herself. And the first text that we have here is the 7 penitential psalms. So it opens with the 7 penitential psalms. And it is nicely done, but again, not fancy. There's no gold. We do have alternating blue and red initials, which I like to point those out because I think they're neat. So we go through the 7 penitential psalms, and then eventually we have the litanies, and these often go together. So let's see, where's the litanies? Here we go. So here are the litanies where we are basically listing out saints' names. So these are the saints that we are praying to. And I think if we look at the saints, let's see. Yes, so we have Maria, and the Virgo, the virgins. We have Gabriel, and I want to say Magdalene. I thought Mary Magdalene might be there, but I don't know. So we've got litanies here, and these are just decorated because some of the names are short. They decorate the lines to fill the lines up. And then after the litanies, we have here we go, the Office of the Dead. So we go right from 7 penitential psalms to the litanies to the Office of the Dead. And now another type of prayer book that is very popular in the same period of time is the Book of Hours. And we often look at books of hours, or we have looked at books of hours in Copy with a Codex before. And books of hours are centered around the office of the Virgin, or the hours of the Virgin, which is basically the canonical hours in the context that's to be used for people who are not monks and nuns, although they were often or sometimes used by nuns in particular who still had books of hours. This is not a book of hours, but these texts are texts that you would find in a book of hours. So the Office of the Dead you often see in books of hours, and obviously the penitential psalms and litanies as well. So here we go. And something that has happening here is these are actually written by different scribes. So if we look at the writing on the left side and the writing on the right side, there's a different number of lines. The writing on this side is smaller. The letters are smaller. This page and the other pages in this section have frames that you can see. So you can see the ruling lines here and down here. And in where the text is written, there are lines that the text is written on. And the one on this side, the framing does not seem to exist, or if it does, it's not written the same. So these were written at two different times. We still have this beautiful blue and red initial there. And you can tell on this page, and I don't know how obvious it is on other pages as well, but this book has been trimmed. So if you can see, there's this blue decoration that gets cut off here because it's literally been cut. Either at the time it was rebound in the 18th century or maybe even before that. It's hard to say. I don't know how many times this book has been rebound in its life. It's possible it was rebound more than once. But it was definitely trimmed, which isn't unusual. It's pretty common actually to see books that were trimmed. Another difference that you were going to see as I'm paging through this section is that whereas before we had these alternating blue and red initials, now everything is red, but we still get some pretty, these have a little bit of pen work that I quite like there. Here we go. And there are some other sections as well. So it sort of goes back and forth between these. And were they made to go together, or was it sections that somebody found and sort of put together? I really don't know. And it's possible, all things are possible with manuscripts. Like, I'm never surprised when I see weird things happening. So there's something, speaking of weird things happening, there's something here, because I'm noticing that this ink is much darker, and this is sort of a lighter, and also seems to have some kind of, so I'm pointing this out, and I don't know what is happening. I don't know why this text, maybe it was even the ink that they were using. They switched to a different bottle of ink, and it maybe it had more iron in it. I'm not sure, but it seems to be sort of setting into the parchment in a strange way. And then for some reason, here's 2.5 lines of this other ink, and then we go back to this ink. If it is an ink thing, indeed, that's happening, but I don't know. I like imagining what might have been happening with the scribe to make this happen. But then we turn the page, and it looks like we're back to sort of ink that is not doing whatever that was doing in the parchment, and more of this sort of pretty pen work there. So we have the Office of the Dead goes along. Oops, something's been erased here. And there, do those two things line up? Those two things, interesting. So we have these two little marks on facing pages. They do seem to line up when you put them together. So maybe there was a drip of water or something, and it got put together. I don't know. I'm kind of looking at Amy like, I don't know. She's shrugging. I don't know. We don't know. But it's neat to see. let's see. So we go through here, and according to the record, oop, here's a little, haven't seen anything in the margin up until now, but here is a little note of some sort. And there's another one. Huh. It looks like something, again, something happening here. So this has been maybe marked out, because this seems to be the same words, but in a different order. So maybe that's what's happening there. Oh, we have a little hole over here. If you see, let's see, can I turn this so you can see it? There's a little hole in the parchment. That would have been made when the parchment was made, and the scribe just wrote around it and also made a little red circle around it, so you would be sure to see that was there. Let's see. Linda is asking about the red underlining. Yes, all of this is underlined here, and then there's a little more underlining here. And I don't know, because I'm not entirely sure what section we're in. Because according to the record, the Office of the Dead is followed by antiphons, and then there are chants, but we're not quite there yet. So I'm not sure, but the scribe or someone is trying to draw attention to that text. So that's what that underlining is probably doing. Lynn says, could the pale script have been written over things that have been scratched out? I think this is the previous one. It could be. I'm not going to be able to find it, but that would be something to look into. That's a case where maybe looking at it under some kind of like UV light might be helpful, if you can see if there's text that was scratched out. If it was scratched out, it was the same hand, so it would have been done, I think, at the same time, or it looked like the same hand, so it would have been contemporaneous with the original writing. Here's more underlining, a little more underlining. Yeah, and I'm not sure when all this underlining, when it was done, if it was done at the same time. So here we have credo, and then the credo itself. So it could be, this could be the antiphons, which is call and response. So you have maybe the response part is what's underlined. I don't know if someone who knows more than me might be able to see that. Let's see. This looks like more litanies, actually. This is more litanies, which, if you remember, the previous litanies were the other section that had the blue and the red and the framing. So this is sort of a clue to me that maybe these weren't, made to go together, that this is more of a, let's take some things that we have, the pieces that we need, and put them together. Now here we have, there was something written on the top margin, and it's been trimmed away, so we'll never know what they said. Here, I like that they ran out of space and they wanted to finish out the litanies, so they just wrote them really little, like plus, and then they have them down there. That's nice. And I'm noticing these are women, so we have Dorothea, close to me. My given name is Dorothy. If you didn't know, Dot is short for Dorothy. So we have Dorothea, we have Barbara, we have Elizabeth. Yeah. I wonder if there are many women in the main list and these were added. Ursula. Linda says, could those be the nuns? So I think, these are all saints. However, I'm glad that you said that, because there is, according to the record, let's see if we can find it, there are nuns' names written in the book. I think it might be in the essay. Let's see, 93. So we're on 75 here. So let's go to 93 verso, because apparently there is there's a name on 93, and there's going to be more fun things to look at. Let's see, 93. Here we go. So we have Sister Maria Gertrudis, Summers Sororis. We have Sister Maria Margareta Magadella Summers. So these are we think the nuns who signed it, or whose names are in it. And then I think on the next page, let's see. All right, it said 94 verso to 95, but I'm not actually seeing that. So that might be on a different, but there's at least the two nuns. So the other names were saints. And then we have here the names. So we'll see, maybe there will be more names here. So what's happening here? So now we have some music, and there's quite a lot of musical notation in here. And these are the chants for Palm Sunday through Easter. So this, I believe, is the processional section of the manuscript. So there's quite a lot, and we can see that it's still part of this section with the red. The initials haven't changed. We're just now getting music added to it. Now here's a place where someone has scratched through a whole line here and up at the top, and there's a little plus sign here, and then there's a plus sign in the margin, and this is telling us, okay, forget what's here, use this instead. And they've filled it in. It's longer, so I'm wondering if someone, when they were copying, might have skipped some words in a sentence, and so they did that. Or it could be a completely different sentence there that they replaced it. And so a little more music. And the chants go on for quite a while, so we'll kind of go ahead just to get a look. And again, if you want to have a closer look, the record that we share with you has links to the digital copy, so you can, yeah, and Amy's just sent it in the chat again. Okay, so now we have another interesting thing happening here, interesting codicalogically. So I see some blue, so we're back to blue, and the same kind of framing. So it looks to me like this might be a little bit of the section that started the manuscript with that blue and red here. So there's a nice long initial I, large initial I, but then we get a couple more come on. Here we go. So, and then there's this. And this is a later leaf. This is not medieval. This is very different. You can even see here, we'll compare it there. It's somebody doing a job, they're like, I want to make it look like that. And so what's this single leaf doing here? So my guess is that this is a replacement leaf. An attempt was made, yes, a replacement leaf. So there was originally a leaf in here that had this music and text on it, and it was lost, or it was damaged, and so someone made this as a replacement to put it in. It's also possible that there was never a leaf there before, and somebody else put this one in. It's a little, without actually looking at it and knowing the context really well, which I don't. Either one is possible. So here's some more. Oh, here we have some more. I'm sure this is another nun name. We have Anna Kalharina Kellermans. Pray for me, right? And we have some more music. Again, this ink, it looks like the scribe changed ink and it didn't work quite so well. So the not the letters, but the notation is not as clean and dark as before. All right. So we only have a couple of minutes, but I think we have time to get to the end. Let's see what else we see. Here's another, I don't know. I think that's a different scribe, maybe filling in the text there. The ink is certainly different. So a lot of different people coming, a lot of different hands being scribes. So a lot of different scribes coming through here. So Gaswan, let's see, said that the red coloring of the edges might be original, as it was used to protect the manuscripts from collecting dirt during the late Middle Ages. Oh, I didn't know that. So it wouldn't have been, I don't think it would have been original because this was trimmed. If it wasn't trimmed, maybe, but it was at least the top was clearly cut. And so it would have been added whenever it was, I mean, maybe it was trimmed in the 15th century, right after it was made, but I don't think so, but maybe. All right, Amy has just put the links in again, which means it's time for me to finish up. But now we're back to blue. So we went back to red, right? We went back and forth between the red and blue and red, the different sections. And here we've got this red ink only section on the left, and now we're back to red and blue, although that looks, now I'm really interested in seeing like how exactly this goes, because that was a pretty smooth transition. The last thing I want to share with you is the end, because we've got the ending here, and then at the very end we've got more of this. Looks kind of similar to that page in the middle. Remember the replacement page? So there's one more of that, and then we've got some prayers that are added at the end. And there's also a German prayer somewhere. I skipped right over it. But if you're interested, go to the record and see that. So this was a little manuscript used by nuns, very well loved, clearly. And Lisa's wearing her Beetroot Guy shirt. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you everyone for coming, and have a great week, and I hope I'll see you next week.